Imagine a secret so chilling, so buried in time, that its echo has haunted a small Iowa town for over 3 decades. What if the person you trusted most turned out to be the key to a mystery hidden in plain sight? A case so cold it froze the hearts of an entire community. Today, we unravel the tragic story of Barbara Lenz, whose disappearance in 1989 left a void filled with unanswered questions, and whose connection with Robert Davis has now reopened wounds long thought to be healed. Stay with us as we journey through the depths of betrayal, mystery, and suspense. A story where every clue is a whisper from the past, and every detail holds the promise of a shocking revelation. Barbara Lenz was more than a name on a missing persons poster. She was a beacon of light in a small Iowa town. Born into a humble family, Barbara carried with her a spark of hope and an unyielding zest for life. Her warm smile and generous spirit made her a beloved figure among neighbors and friends alike. In the words of Barbara Lenz's close friend, Barbara was the kind of person who could light up a room without even trying. Even as a little girl, her laughter was contagious, and you always knew she was destined for greatness. Her life was one of quiet determination and joyous moments, a tapestry woven with memories of endless summer days and the promise of a bright future. Yet, beneath that radiant exterior lay a looming darkness that no one could have foreseen. In 1989, on what seemed like an ordinary autumn evening, fate took a harrowing turn. Barbara's life, filled with hope and promise, was forever altered when she was last seen with a man who, until then, had been part of her everyday life. On that autumn evening, the streets of a sleepy Iowa town were about to bear witness to a series of events that would forever change the lives of those involved. Barbara and Robert, seemingly ordinary in their routine, embarked on what would be the last journey Barbara would ever take. Witnesses later described how, even in those early moments, a sense of unease began to creep in, the kind of feeling that foretells that something is terribly amiss. As the night deepened, Barbara's laughter, once so vibrant, was replaced by a haunting silence. In the span of mere hours, she vanished without a trace. What began as an ordinary evening had now transformed into a mystery that would baffle investigators and haunt the community for over 36 years. In the wake of her disappearance, the town was left to grapple with a cascade of unanswered questions. Who was Robert Davis, the man last seen with her? And what role did he play in the enigma that would become one of Iowa's most haunting cold cases? In the chaotic aftermath of Barbara's disappearance, law enforcement found themselves navigating a labyrinth of clues, each one a piece of a puzzle that refused to fit neatly together. For the first responders, the case was more than just another missing persons report. It was a mystery that dug into the very soul of a community that yearned for answers. In the words of a retired detective, we knew right from the start that something wasn't right. There were inconsistencies, subtle details in the witness statements that couldn't be ignored. And then there was Robert Davis. His behavior that night was inexplicably off. Every scrap of evidence was scrutinized. Investigators soon began to notice the unsettling behavior of Robert Davis, the man who was not only present at the scene, but whose demeanor on that fateful evening was laced with nervous energy and cryptic actions. His presence, once dismissed as coincidental, slowly emerged as a focal point of suspicion. Witnesses recalled how his laughter had become forced and his explanations rehearsed, a performance that belied the gravity of the situation. With each passing day, as the trail grew colder, the details of that night became a mosaic of doubts and suspicions. Cold case investigations often hinge on breakthroughs in forensic science, small details that, after years in storage, suddenly speak volumes. For Barbara's case, modern forensic techniques breathed new life into evidence that had long been overlooked. Among the recovered evidence were traces of unusual substances, a chemical residue that didn't match any known profiles, and fibers that, upon microscopic examination, hinted at a rare, possibly imported fabric. Such findings were not just anomalies. They were clues that began to paint a picture of a crime that was premeditated, calculated, and cloaked in deception. These forensic breakthroughs were more than scientific triumphs. They were emotional vindications for a family desperate for closure and for a community that had been left in limbo for decades. Each piece of evidence, no matter how small, was a testament to the relentless pursuit of truth. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that the story of Barbara Lenz was far more complex than anyone had imagined. Old witnesses, once too frightened or too confused to speak out, began to share details that had been locked away for decades. Their accounts, often vague, yet laced with undeniable conviction, added layers of complexity to the case. Each testimonial became a vital thread in a tapestry of memory and suspicion. The voices of those who had long suffered the pain of loss contributed to a growing narrative that beneath the veneer of normalcy lay secrets too dark to confront, secrets that would one day demand justice. By piecing together these scattered fragments of memory and evidence, the investigators began to see a pattern emerge, a pattern in which every small detail, every overlooked nuance, pointed to the unthinkable truth. And as the pieces started to come together, a single name began to resonate all too clearly: Robert Davis. What began as a routine missing persons investigation had morphed into a relentless quest for the truth, a truth that lay hidden beneath layers of doubt, fear, and deceit. As the investigation progressed, every new lead, every forensic revelation, only deepened the mystery surrounding Barbara Lenz's disappearance. And with each passing day, the stakes grew higher, pulling the community and law enforcement into a vortex of questions that demanded answers. As you join us in uncovering the layers of this haunting mystery, we want your voice to be heard. In the final segment of our documentary, we will ask, what do you think really happened that night? Could there be more hidden truths waiting to be uncovered? Your comments, insights, and theories will not only help us keep the conversation alive, they will ensure that the memory of Barbara Lenz and the pursuit of justice remain a part of our collective narrative. So hit that subscribe button, share your thoughts below, and join us in the search for truth. As the years wore on, hope of finding new leads began to wane, until modern technology breathed new life into a case long considered cold. In a state-of-the-art forensic lab, investigators revisited the Barbara Lenz files. Dusty photographs and handwritten notes were scanned and analyzed using advanced digital tools that could reveal minute details previously overlooked. One of the forensic analysts said, "Digitizing the evidence allowed us to run comparisons with national databases in ways that weren't possible decades ago. Suddenly, patterns emerged, a distinct chemical residue here, a rare fiber there. Each anomaly began to paint a clearer picture of what might have happened. One breakthrough came with the identification of an unusual compound, a residue not typically found in common household products of the 1980s. This substance hinted at premeditation and a deliberate attempt to mask the evidence. Coupled with a fiber analysis that revealed an exotic fabric, these findings shifted the investigation into high gear. In the aftermath of these forensic breakthroughs, detectives turned once again to the community. Witnesses who had remained silent for decades were approached, their memories stirred by the renewed hope for answers. For some, the passage of time had dulled the edges of trauma. For others, it had etched their recollections into permanence. Every statement, every whispered recollection, was meticulously recorded. The re-interviews revealed startling consistencies, small details that had once been dismissed or forgotten. A slight twitch, an offhand remark, even the way Robert Davis had avoided the glare of the streetlights. All of these fragments formed a mosaic of evidence that pointed increasingly toward one central figure. Not content with re-examining old evidence alone, the investigators embarked on a series of undercover operations designed to uncover hidden facets of Robert Davis's life. Informants were approached, and shadowy figures, once overlooked, began to emerge from the periphery of the case. In a narrative where every secret seemed to hide another, these new testimonies added a layer of complexity that left even seasoned detectives with more questions than answers. These revelations hinted at a double life, one in which Robert's public persona was but a facade. The more the investigators delved into his past, the more they discovered. A trail that led to unsavory connections, financial irregularities, and even hints of a network that stretched far beyond the quiet borders of Iowa. The renewed forensic efforts were groundbreaking. Advanced imaging and chemical analysis revealed that the mysterious residue found on evidence samples was not only rare, it was almost untraceable to any common source of that era. The substance, when cross-referenced with historical industrial data, pointed to a niche supplier known for materials used in high-security applications. At the same time, fiber analysis took a dramatic turn. The exotic fabric, initially dismissed as a red herring, was eventually traced back to a manufacturer whose products were used in rare, custom-made clothing. The convergence of these forensic threads suggested that the evidence had been deliberately planted or manipulated, a tactic used to confuse investigators and obscure the true nature of the crime. As modern science shed light on old evidence, the investigation began to reveal a disturbing pattern, a network of secrets that extended far beyond a single missing person case. Archived police files uncovered links between Robert Davis and several unsolved incidents, each echoing the same chilling modus operandi. These connections spanned more than just geography. They hinted at a carefully orchestrated web of corruption, personal vendettas, and a deliberate cover-up that had allowed the darkness to persist for decades. Each new piece of evidence raised the stakes, urging investigators to dig deeper, challenge old assumptions, and confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of the crime. Every investigative step forward revealed another layer of deceit, a carefully constructed facade meant to hide a far more sinister reality. The deeper the detectives dug, the more it seemed that every answer led to a new question. As digital breakthroughs and reawakened memories converged, the case took on a life of its own, one that defied easy explanation and forced the community to confront the possibility that the evil lurking behind Barbara's disappearance was far more complex than anyone could have imagined. Just when the investigation began to appear as though it might be contained within the boundaries of a single night, an unexpected discovery in the archives shattered everything. Buried deep within the stacks of unsorted case files and neglected news reports, investigators unearthed an old article, a forgotten expose that hinted at a far more sinister chapter in the life of Robert Davis. This article, barely a footnote in local history, recounted unsettling details of a series of disappearances that bore an uncanny resemblance to Barbara Lenz's case. Davis's name, mentioned in hushed tones and with an air of foreboding, was linked to events that had long been dismissed as isolated incidents. But as investigators pored over this newfound evidence, a shocking narrative began to emerge, one that revealed a man living a double life, caught between the mundane and the macabre. For years, Robert Davis had expertly maintained a facade of normalcy, a trusted member of the community, a caring partner, a man who seemed to embody the quiet reliability of small-town life. Yet, beneath this unassuming exterior lay a labyrinth of secrets. Flashbacks reveal moments where Davis's behavior diverged sharply from the ordinary. A missed phone call that he never explained, mysterious meetings late at night, and an undercurrent of anxiety that no one seemed to notice at the time. These recollections, coupled with a long-forgotten article, began to suggest that Davis was not only linked to Barbara's disappearance, but may have been involved in a pattern of chilling behavior that spanned years, a pattern that was now coming back to haunt him. In one of the most astonishing turns of the investigation, a diary belonging to a close associate of Robert Davis surfaced. Its pages revealed not only mundane details of daily life, but also a series of cryptic entries that hinted at secrets too dark to speak aloud. Phrases like "the night that never ends" and "the price of silence" were scrawled alongside dates that coincided with other mysterious disappearances in the region. The diary suggested that Davis was entangled in a clandestine network, one that extended its tendrils far beyond the limits of a simple cold case. The entries hinted at a series of secret meetings, coded messages, and an unspoken pact among a group of individuals who dealt in dangerous, hidden truths. What was the nature of this network? And what did it have to do with the disappearance of Barbara Lenz? With the diary as a pivotal piece of evidence, the investigation entered a new phase, one where the mundane world of everyday life collided with the clandestine realm of hidden crimes. Detectives found themselves confronting an unsettling truth. Robert Davis was not an isolated anomaly, but a central figure in a broader conspiracy that had been allowed to fester in the dark corners of society. This confrontation of two worlds, the ordinary and the unthinkable, brought with it a chilling realization. The case of Barbara Lenz was a symptom of a much larger, hidden phenomenon. The investigation was no longer solely about finding a missing person. It was about exposing an intricate network of secrets, deceit, and systemic corruption. Then, the moment of reckoning arrived, a convergence of evidence that left little doubt about the truth. A series of phone records, financial transactions, and corroborated witness testimonies painted a damning portrait of Robert Davis. His involvement in the secret network was irrefutable, and his connection to the disappearance of Barbara Lenz, as well as other unsettling incidents, was laid bare for all to see. As the layers of deception were peeled back, it became evident that the case was not a singular act of violence, but part of a broader, premeditated operation. The evidence suggested that the disappearance of Barbara Lenz was orchestrated as a means to silence a potential threat, a threat that someone within this secretive network could not allow to disrupt their plans. The investigation reached an inflection point, a moment when the scales tipped, revealing a stark truth. Robert Davis was not merely a reluctant accomplice or a misguided lover. The evidence pointed to a man who had meticulously engineered events for years, orchestrating a series of actions that served a darker, more deliberate purpose. He had become the mastermind behind a network of clandestine operations that, until now, had remained shrouded in mystery. This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation. The man who had once been seen simply as Barbara's boyfriend was now understood to be the linchpin in a far-reaching conspiracy, a realization that redefined the stakes of the entire case. The big twist was undeniable. The disappearance of Barbara Lenz was inextricably linked to a covert network, and Robert Davis was its master puppeteer. As the truth of this complex web of deceit and premeditation emerged, the investigation braced itself for a final confrontation, a reckoning that would force a hidden past into the unforgiving light of day. The pieces had finally fallen into place, and the stage was set for a resolution that promised to bring both closure and deeper questions. The community, already reeling from the revelations, now awaited the moment when justice would be served, and when the true nature of Robert Davis's double life would be irrevocably exposed. After decades of unanswered questions and the painstaking assembly of overwhelming evidence, the long-awaited day of reckoning finally arrived. In a meticulously planned operation that reverberated throughout the community, law enforcement apprehended Robert Davis, a man whose public mask of normalcy had concealed an intricate web of deceit, premeditation, and unspeakable betrayal. For Barbara's family, this was a bittersweet victory, a moment where pain met possibility. The capture of Robert Davis promised answers, and perhaps the long-overdue healing of a community battered by loss. The trial of Robert Davis was not just a legal proceeding. It was a dramatic confrontation between the forces of truth and the dark shadows of a hidden past. The courtroom became a battleground where forensic evidence, eyewitness testimonies, and decades of suppressed memories clashed in a desperate fight for justice. Every piece of evidence was dissected. The prosecution laid out a narrative that wove together decades-old witness accounts, advanced forensic breakthroughs, and the damning revelations of a hidden network. As each testimony unfolded, the courtroom was gripped by a mixture of horror and reluctant admiration for the meticulous work that had finally unmasked the truth. In the midst of the legal battle, the courtroom became a confessional, a place where the long-silenced voices of those who had lost so much finally found the strength to speak. Every testimony carried the weight of years spent in sorrow, every tear a testament to the life that was stolen too soon. These heartfelt testimonies not only humanized the legal proceedings, but also underscored a universal truth that behind every statistic and headline lies a cascade of personal tragedies, unfulfilled dreams, and the enduring human desire for closure. In the climactic moments of the trial, a final forensic revelation was presented, a comprehensive analysis that brought together every disparate piece of evidence into one coherent picture. Advanced imaging, chemical analysis, and detailed financial records converged to reveal a story that left little room for doubt. With each new detail unveiled, the courtroom's collective gasp grew louder. Here was the final piece of the puzzle, a damning synthesis of science, persistence, and the unyielding quest for truth. For many, it was the long-awaited confirmation that justice, though delayed, had not been denied. After hours of deliberation and a trial that spanned the full gamut of human emotion, the moment of truth had arrived. The judge, after weighing the monumental evidence and the raw testimonies of those left behind, rendered a verdict that would mark the turning point in this long, painful journey. In a verdict that sent shockwaves through the community and reaffirmed the belief in the relentless pursuit of justice, Robert Davis was found guilty on multiple charges. For the family of Barbara Lenz, and for a community that had borne the weight of unanswered questions, it was a bittersweet triumph, a moment where justice, though costly, had finally prevailed. Yet, even as the verdict brought closure to one chapter of this sprawling mystery, the shadows of the past still lingered. The trial, while a monumental step forward, left behind an array of unanswered questions, a stark reminder that not every wound can be healed and some scars may never fully fade. The arrest, trial, and eventual conviction of Robert Davis stand as a testament to the power of persistence, technology, and the unwavering human spirit. But they also serve as a solemn warning. The past, with all its hidden dangers and long-buried truths, will always have a way of resurfacing, demanding recognition and reconciliation. As the sun rises on a new day, the story of Barbara Lenz remains etched in the hearts of those who long for truth and justice. Her life, a tapestry of hope, dreams, and unfulfilled promises, continues to remind us that every shadow hides a story, and every unanswered question is an invitation to keep searching. We invite you, our viewers, to join this conversation. What do you believe still lies beneath the surface of this case? How can we, as a community, continue to honor those lost and ensure that their stories are never forgotten? Share your thoughts, your theories, and your hopes in the comments below. And if you believe in the relentless pursuit of truth, please subscribe and help us bring light to the darkest corners of our shared history. Thank you for following this journey. From the harrowing disappearance of Barbara Lenz to the unmasking of a network of secrets, and finally, to a moment of justice that, while not erasing the past, lights a path toward healing. Remember, the truth is a flame that must never be allowed to flicker out.